Welcome to Outdrive, folks. I'm your host, Cliff Callis, and each week I'm bringing you actionable marketing insights you can apply to reach, connect with, and convert rural American consumers. Outdrive is powered by Callis, a full-service advertising agency with a focus on marketing rural America. Callis offers a wide range of integrated marketing services, including website development, search engine marketing, social media, video, and digital. We develop strategic and creative campaigns to build your brand and your business, and you can learn more about us at ecallis.com. Now join me in the front seat as we head out on the road to success. Let's go. Hey folks, welcome to Outdrive. We've got another great story to share with you today about life and work in rural America, where digital marketing has proven to be one of the most effective ways to reach the audience who lives here. Our philosophy at the agency is that you must deliver your message to your audience where they are to be effective. Back in the day, you could shotgun your media, hitting some of your targets, but missing many. And honestly, you didn't know who you were hitting. Today, with digital marketing expertise, you can slice and dice your targets way down, hit them consistently, and prove it with reporting. One of the people who does that is our guest today. Andrew Stallcup is a digital marketing strategist at Callis, our advertising agency. And ever since we were founded back in 1987, we, along with everybody else in the advertising industry, have gone through the digital revolution, and it continues to evolve today. Stay tuned for insights into a variety of different strategies for employing digital and social media, what's trending, and where we're headed in the future. Welcome to Outdrive, Andrew.
Hey, Cliff, thanks for having me on.
Well, I've been excited to have you on. You're one of our newest employees, and not our newest, but one of our newest. And you work in what I think is a really exciting area, which is digital marketing strategy, and you're really good at it. So today I want to hear your perspectives on that, but also want to hear about your background growing up, serving in the military. And I want to thank you for your 18 years of military service to our country. And then get your take on what's going on in the world, and especially the world of digital marketing. But before we go down any of those roads, let's start by having you tell our audience just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I've been in the digital marketing industry for 5 to 7 years. Prior to that, I used to work in psychiatric and mental health. It was a field I really enjoyed, but it just, it takes a toll on you. And so I went back to my other passion, which is marketing, and really leaned into the digital side, something that I really enjoy. I'm kind of a person that doesn't really enjoy getting ads, but if I'm going to get them, I want them to be good. So I figured if I got in that industry, I could help people get good ads.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. And I think about that, people sometimes, since I'm in the business, they ask me, what about these ads that like follow me around, or these ads I get served all the time, and they're really products that I'm interested in. I just don't ever sign up for them, but I get them. And I say to them, that's what digital marketing is all about, is, each one of us is been put into multiple markets based on our online activity. And so if that is all accurate, we're going to get served ads that we're interested in based on things that we looked at. And I think that's really the genius of digital marketing, don't you think?
Oh, definitely. Getting ads and seeing ads is something that, I think mankind has probably known since the day of any kind of trade. Somebody is sitting there in a market full of other market, you know, you could think Mesopotamia, market full of people with apples and fruits and other things. And what's going to make somebody come to your stand instead of another stand? And so marketing has kind of always been in, human society. And we're just in an era now where we can personalize them and send them to you and trying to really get you the products that you're probably already going to buy or interested in buying, but help reaffirm why you want to.
And help you buy.
Exactly.
So, as I think about, what goes into somebody's career, I tend to believe in many cases it goes back to their childhood. And so what was life like for you as a kid?
So my grandparents originally came from the Midwest. My grandpa was from Lebanon, Missouri, and my grandma was from Chicago, Illinois. Kind of in the, I believe, what mid 40s or so, they moved out to California, kind of back when California was still a place where you could get a living wage and live pretty easy. Now it's pretty expensive. But when they retired, they decided to move back out to the Midwest, and my dad and mom decided to follow, which I'm very thankful for. I've been out here off and on for most of my life, and this is where I put my roots, where I started my own family, wife and daughter. And just growing up out in the Midwest, it's one of those places where you don't realize how good you have it until you go to someplace else, or until you have somebody come and visit and they tell you like, man, everybody here is just so kind and hospitable. And you're like, where are you from? You know? So,
So what led you into the military?
well, so I joined in 2006, which is the year I graduated from high school. As most Americans for sure know, a few years prior to that, 9/11, and it was a pretty critical moment in a lot of our lives. And I knew a lot of people that were slightly older than me, or people's parents, friends of mine who had parents that maybe were serving or joined. And so there was just kind of a lot of support and a lot of love for our country, and really wanted to help be there for one another. And so as I grew up, finishing up high school, I thought to myself, okay, I'm getting ready to graduate early. I was 17, and it's like, really, I could wait a year and turn 18, or I could beg my parents to sign this document and let me join today. After some negotiating, my mom finally signed it, and my career started, and just became a place where my personality fit well with the leadership and the mentoring that I was receiving. And so I've been doing it for almost 18 years now.
So what kind of things have you been involved in?
On the military side, let's see, in the beginning, I was active duty, spent some time training. I was doing a lot of specialized training in psychological operations, which is what my career path is. Back in the day when I was kind of pushed in that direction, I didn't realize how lucky I'd be getting pushed into that field. Psychological operations, it's kind of the fancy military word for marketing. Our motto is persuasion and influence. And in a marketing sense, that's kind of what we're trying to do, trying to persuade you and influence you to want to purchase something. But now you put that on a military side, a military tactical level, and the idea of, hey, stop making roadside bombs, that kind of something that's maybe on a more military side. How do you persuade and influence a group of people to want to stop and or start doing something? So spent some time in Iraq, quite a bit of time in Iraq, a year or so in Africa, and quite a few other smaller tours. At this stage of my career, I'm kind of more in a training capacity. So I'm getting the new era of previous little me's and trying to prepare them to do what I've done. And it's really rewarding. You kind of see in their eyes the glint and glimmer of, oh my gosh, I could do anything. You're like, man, that was me one. And so you just really try your best to provide that mentorship and that training, and, keep that next generation ready to doing the great things for America.
Well, again, thank you for your service. So when you first told us about your background and said that, psychological operations is a fancy term in the military for marketing, which is what we do. As I thought about that, it made a lot of sense to me. And I've always enjoyed psychology. It was an area that I took all the ology classes in
Mhm.
in college because I wanted to know about people. And really that's what marketing is all about, is understanding the people you're trying to communicate with and then figuring out the best means and the best messaging and the best way to inspire, educate, inform, motivate people. So I think that's a great background for you to have coming to us to do digital marketing. So when and how did you develop this interest
Within the field of marketing.
in digital marketing?
Oh, in digital marketing. Well, as I mentioned before, I'm not always the most thrilled to receive ads, but I think some of that comes from, the old cable TV days where, you just got served whatever was on the TV. You're watching Simpsons or something like that. And next thing you know, you're seeing ads for a car dealership and all kinds of other random things. And I just kind of always rolled my eyes. And even at a young age, just like, here's my chance to leave the room and go do something else. And, it just kind of always bugged me. And as technology's advanced, and as I kind of started understanding more of how ads were working in the new era of digital marketing and ad serving, it kind of was interesting because all those behind the scene things, those cookies, when you see that little accept the cookies and things like that, you're browsing online, you're helping tell these advertisers like ourselves, what I'm interested in, what websites I'm visiting. And on one level, that can sound kind of scary, But if you took away the digital aspect of it, if you had, you brought an interior designer to your house, usually you're not just going to say, do whatever you want. You're going to sit down with them. They're going to get to know you and shape their proposal or their, craft that they're going to do for you around your interests. And so when you take that on an advertising side, that's what we want to do. We want to take your interests. We'd like to, we don't get to sit down with every human being that we serve ads to, but we want to take your interests and make sure that you're getting high quality ads that have messaging and products that are going to push you in a direction that might already want to go in. Kind of like when you'd receive a catalog in the mail or something like that. We're just coming at it in a different perspective and a different medium. And it's just something that as I figured more out about that myself, then I started not being so frustrated about ads because I was thinking, well, maybe I'll do my part as the consumer and let those algorithms and those things know what I like, because then I'm going to start getting ads that push me in the direction because I'm going to buy things. And
Right.
it's just kind of a cyclical, a journey basically starting as the consumer, then becoming the advertiser and staying the consumer.
So I think we might have some listeners out there that are thinking about their cookies. And, not all, but many websites, when you first get onto those, when you're browsing on them, you get that cookie request. So talk about what happens if you say yes to the cookies or you say no to the cookies.
Yeah. So, the day and age that we're in now, we have, VPNs and other things like that are already kind of confusing some of these collections and algorithms because while those programs and softwares can be important for security and safety with, hackers and other people out in the community, most of these websites within the cookie policies and things they show will tell you about their security features so that you know that you're not just opening up a back door to malware or things like that. And those cookie features, essentially what it's building is it's taking bits of your information and building a little package that is feeding in back to Google or StackAdapt or other programs that have audience builders. And so when someone like myself is, given a project and I'm told, hey, they really want to, try and get this product in front of, people who mow their lawns, don't have a lawnmower service, but mow their own lawns, that's what this product's for. And I'm like, all right. And so, there's a couple ways to approach that. And one of those ways is, okay, well, what kind of sites do people go to that maybe mow their own lawn? Maybe that's, fertilizer web pages or local, gardening shops or things like that. And so that's something where I can build an audience based on even specific websites and say, I want people who view these websites for 30 seconds or more. And when you don't click that cookie, you're basically kind of hiding yourself from that audience. And so while the ad still could potentially be served to you in some ways, it's not really looking for you at that point. And that can, be a pro and con. Some people like to hide it, but a lot of these websites now they offer the cookie option. Some say just accept all or reject, but some will say accept all, custom settings or something like that. And you can click into that website and it may have a couple of check boxes. And that's where you can kind of maybe have a little bit more control where you're like, you know what, I'm willing to give a little bit of my data or something like that, but not all of it. So it's kind of a give and take, but in the day and age that we live in, it's definitely something to keep an eye on, but I don't think people should be as afraid of them as sometimes the stigma is.
Yeah, I agree with that. So what do you love about what you do?
There's just really there's just so much that's always going on in digital marketing. It's not always great when things are changing because sometimes it's a new feature on a platform that you got to learn. But other than that, it just seems like it's a journey every day. You can learn and master platforms to a maybe more like an optimal level where you get more efficient on the platforms, but there's always a new project or a new client or a new type of service or product that you're building around, which means, custom audiences, custom messaging, creative. And that's just the fun part of it. It's just you can tackle this kind of position and this job field from kind of a both sides of your brain, your kind of creative side and your logical side. And that's something that just really appeals to me.
I agree with that. And I like the change. I think change is good. And, our industry just keeps evolving. And a lot of it is driven by technology. being able to do more than we used to be able to do, faster, better, cheaper. But it is that change and the opportunity to do new things for new people with new needs that keeps it kind of fresh for me as well. One of the things that we incorporate into everything we do at Callis in our advertising agency is the core of strategy. Strategy is at the core of everything that we do. And so when you think about that, why, in your opinion, do you think strategy is so important when you're developing digital marketing campaigns?
Well, I mean, strategy is I think at the end of the day, the strategy is your bread and butter. Just like building a house, you want to have a strong foundation. And when you're building ads or developing a campaign of ads, if you just go into it with really basic concept, you say, I've got a bottle of ketchup and I want people to see this bottle of ketchup. Okay. I mean, you could just go take a picture of that ketchup and write a few words and put it on, Facebook ads. You could, but it's going to do two things at that point. You have the algorithm itself within Facebook is going to try and sell it. It's going to say, all right, I've got it. Here's your budget. I'm going to try and push it in front of people. But as people don't react to it or really quickly scroll past it, the human response is going to tell that algorithm, like, oh, people think this is ugly. They don't like seeing it. They're not interacting with it. So after a while, no matter how much money you put into it, Facebook's going to kind of subtly tell you in your data, sorry, I'm not going to serve this to people because the end of the day, Facebook, especially as a platform, wants their users happy. And if their users are not interacting with your ad or it's hurting their experience on Facebook, Facebook's not going to serve that ad to them. So it's one of those things where like you could do that. You could push something just from, top of your brain, good idea, light bulb goes off, and you just slap it on there and send it out. But having that strategy is your foundational piece. And that's going to be where you take those extra steps and a little bit of time and that's where you're going to really help benefit what budget you're going to put towards it and what people you're going to send this to and deciding what kind of results you want as well, because sometimes people just think, all right, I'm going to get this out there and I'm going to get sales, and it's like, well, the way you're going to go about it right now might be more about awareness, and then we get you to sales. Do people know about what product you're showing? If you just put it out there, people might scroll past it thinking it's like, I don't even know what this is, I don't have time to look at it. And that's where that strategy comes in, that foundational piece of, is this something we can put out there and people are just going to buy? Or is this something we got to educate the audience first and maybe have a multi-layered, campaign approach so that by the time that sales ad goes out there, people are ready to buy and they are ready to move on your product.
Well, I think you've expressed that very well. I really like the way that you approach that. Well, let's spend a few minutes and talk about maybe some of the most significant things that you see happening today in the marketing world or that we see happening. What's your take on influencer marketing?
That's one of those fields of it could almost have its own, individual person per company because, that's a mixed bag of a way to approach marketing. You can have controlled influencers who, have their niche that they maybe they're YouTube or Instagram. There may be more of a niche market audience where they have videos or content that's towards, makeup or something like that. I know my wife watches a lot of specific individuals on social media. She's like, they just have the best tutorials on things. And I always think like, wow, just got a new palette of makeup. I wonder where that, wonder who told you about that. And while somebody like myself doesn't even know who this influencer is, I know the power of that influencer to somebody close to me, like my wife. And if I Google that person and I see they got 2 million followers, I'm like, well, people must really like their content. And usually an influencer like that is a fairly controlled partnership that you could have if you were to utilize them for, specific products. I'm not going to try and ask the makeup influencer to sell beer per se, but if I might want to, if I have a makeup product or something within that wheelhouse of industry, that might be an influencer that you talk to and they're in that controlled environment and they, send them your product or work out a partnership with them. And, they're going to do their best to show your product in a great light to their large audience. And I always think about it as for every individual that you have as a follower or a like or anything like that, that one person branches off into all of their social circle. And as I mentioned, I don't watch this influencer, I don't follow her, but my wife does. But if my wife, her birthday's coming up, I could jump on, even though I don't follow the person, I might think, hey, what was the influencer she had? Go on there, get an idea. That might be the gift idea, and so it's kind of one of those, you influence beyond what followers that these people have. And I think influencer marketing is something we've been doing for a long time. You look at old TV commercials and maybe a local, sports star or somebody like that, Travis Kelce, you'd see him sometimes here in Springfield for some of the law commercials, and he's a big name person. So when only one lawyer in all of Springfield has a commercial with Travis Kelce, probably puts him a little bit more on the map than some people. So, you can go about it a lot of different ways. And I think it's something that definitely takes strategy, because you can't just pick a person and expect them to be the right influencer for your product. And sometimes you need to do some background check, because sometimes you have those loose cannons that you're not aware of. And last thing you want to do is have a controversy either. So it's kind of I think it's a strong field, but it definitely takes some research and some monitoring.
Yeah, there's certainly risk and reward there, but boy, it could sure be powerful.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, Andrew, what influencers, if any, have an impact to you?
It's one of those things where if I really was to think about it and break it down, there's probably almost an infinite amount, it seems like, of influencers. And I kind of look at them like a bullseye as to which ones maybe make a bigger impact on my decisions. The other day, my wife and I went and saw a movie in the theaters, and as many people who go to the theaters may know, it gets more and more expensive. And some of these theaters, they serve you dinner while you're there, and next thing you know, it's a whole expensive date. And so I know when we choose to go to the movies, it's gotta we kind of think about it. It's like, is this going to be a good movie? Is this going to be worth our time and money? Because at the end of the day, it might be $120 that we just spend and to sit for 2 hours. And if you do that at a really nice restaurant that you wanted to go to, that's your experience. The experience was the atmosphere, the service. And when you're going to a movie and you're tying in almost a restaurant date-like experience to that movie, you want it to be enjoyable. And so that's where I have some influencers maybe that approach media in different ways. Some people are maybe more neutral critics, and so I really like hearing their take, because that individual's not so much trying to sell me the movie to watch it or not watch it. They're just kind of going at it about, here's kind of the summary plot synopsis, and from their opinion, maybe it's good. And then I go find another influencer that I really enjoy that is very critical of media and movies. And I like listening to some of these individuals, because one of them, his slogan is every frame a pause, because he likes to break things down almost second by second is his way. And so for someone as myself who enjoys something like that, I really enjoy deep analysis. He's somebody that he's looking at all these little minor details that you can tell, especially when it's a good movie, the craft that was put into it and the experience that you're going to get from it. And that's one of those things where I might, my wife's like, all right, watch this movie. And I don't want to tell her no all the time, but hey, sweetheart, I heard a few things about that one. If you really want to see it, I will go. But maybe this one, and I always try to credit my sources. And she's like, oh, were you listening to that podcast again? Yeah, I was. But so that's one of those things where something that I listen to for entertainment, I listen to those guys even when it's not for a movie review. And but when it is time for me to spend money, I, I'm being influenced. I'm listening to these people, and that's just something where sometimes we, as consumers in general, we don't always realize who's influencing us. You might be watching a YouTuber who does auto mechanic stuff for do-it-yourselfers, and that individual constantly watches it, and the guy's never selling anything. He's just showing you how to fix parts on your car. But maybe they're so efficient that you're going to watch all of their videos based on your vehicle, and make a lot of decisions based on your vehicle, and based on this guy, especially if he has that credibility. And as a consumer, you may not think, oh, that guy influences my buying habits, but there might be a chance he is. He might unintentionally be telling you, hey, here's the reason why I buy parts from this place, because as a guy that's done this for 20 years, like these parts have never failed me. And he's not even plugging it as a paid sponsor. He's just telling you his experience. And you're like, you know what? I'll check that place out. But that's kind of the power that influencers have, even unintentionally. So
No,
that's something that's always interesting.
yeah, I think that's a great perspective. Yeah, I think there's so many different ways that influencer marketing can go, and a couple things that just come to my mind. I've started watching this series on Netflix, and I don't need to talk about which one it is or anything, but there is a character, an actress in this series. And my wife has says she's not going to watch the series with me because she doesn't like this particular actress and what she has done in our society. And I'm like, okay, that's sort of like negative influencer marketing. And then I think about another series because I'm into these series, is why I work out in the mornings. So I've been
Mhm.
watching different ones and it's been kind of entertaining and motivating for me. But there's another one that I just finished not too long ago. And I really think that the lead character is a pretty cool dude.
Mhm.
And he drives a particular kind of car,
Mhm.
which influences me to like that vehicle because he's driving it. And that is so subtle, I think, because, that's product placement, which is kind of a different marketing strategy. But I just think all those things work together to influence the way that you think and behave.
Most definitely. That's kind of tying back into what you brought up earlier with strategy is some of these bigger companies and industries, that's their strategy. They're thinking, okay, I need an influencer to plug this product placement. And, then as well as tethering in just other layers and media platforms. But even though I don't think one of my favorite examples just from my childhood loving James Bond, even though I never owned an Aston Martin, and I think Aston Martins probably didn't really increase in sales so much because of James Bond, their luxury and notoriety did. And the people that could afford them are willing to pay that extra money for this high luxury brand because I'm sure the car itself has great qualities, but there's just this tether to James Bond, who's had so many influential actors play him, Sean Connery, Pierce Brosnan, Daniel Craig, many more than that. But those individuals, there was a reason that Aston Martin was like, "That's cool. Put our car in there. We love it. We'll put guns on it. That's fine." They don't really have guns, but James Bond makes it look cool. But it's just one of those things where that was their strategy, and James Bond's been around for as far as I'm aware 40 plus years. I'm sure more than that, and they've kept that partnership essentially. Because if at any point they didn't like it, I'm sure they'd be, "Hey, can you change James Bond's car?" They make it a Ford or something. If they really didn't like the partnership. So that's just one of those little subtle ones.
No, I think that's a great example, and I'm a big Bond fan too. Well, you mentioned YouTubers, and certainly they can have a lot of influence. Why do you think video content is so dominant today?
Well, I think as somebody that grew up reading a lot of books, my grandma was a bookworm and always had us in the library, and I always really enjoyed them. It was always kind of a treat to watch videos initially, whether it was just like watching a cartoon on TV or something like that. And the level of engagement that you get from that kind of media and content, it triggers a different portion of your brain. Like if they did a brain scan, there's kind of a different portion of your brain that heats up. And the way that you retain visual and audio in your brain can be very, very powerful and impactful, just as books are as well. But when you're reading a book, your brain's kind of taking in more of the logical story. It's piecing something together, it's doing work. And a lot of times when you're consuming a video with audio as well, but mostly video, your eyes are taking in the scenery. And that's something that we just automatically do every day. I know there are individuals who do not have sight, and I hate that for them, but they can consume videos in a different way as well. But it's something we just kind of don't realize we're doing all the time. We're walking down the street, and the reason we don't fall into the street is we're kind of just observing our surroundings and we're recording things in our brain. And that way, the next time we walk down the street, we don't need to ask directions. We just kind of know. And I think when you're consuming a visual medium, especially a video, you're retaining something in a really powerful way, and it can really stick with you in a way and kind of compound upon itself the same way as walking down the street several times and knowing that in 3 more steps, there's going to be a pothole, and you don't even look down, but you step over it. And it's kind of that way with videos. If I'm seeing organic or paid content, and especially if it starts kind of taking you on a journey, if you have a video ad that you see one day and it's some insurance company and it's a silly ad, but insurance is kind of boring, but so the ad's fun. And that's what makes that insurance company stand out to me. I'm sure that they don't have parties in their office for real, but what's going to draw me to maybe call that company is the story that they build with maybe several different ads or several different visual experiences that I have with them. And sometimes it's even those first 5 seconds on some of those ads. And there's times that those ads are so good, I'll watch the whole ad. And that's on the paid side. But when you're consuming that organic material, you think about it like a TV series. There's a reason that there's a second season and a third season, and they're compounding upon each other and they're growing that narrative, that story, because as the consumer of that story, I want to know more. I want to be taken from what I first saw to now what I am seeing. And it's something that really can capture and motivate people. And so I think it's a very, very powerful medium.
Yeah, it really is. And just keeps getting more and more powerful. And I know in our business, of course, we track most everything that we do for our clients. And, video and YouTube specifically just seems to keep outperforming everything. And I don't see that changing. Another thing I want to talk about a little bit is voice SEO. And, we've been hearing about voice SEO for years, but it seems like it's now starting to have some impact. Why do you think that is?
I think it's like with any new technology, when it first comes about, it seems almost unreal. And you have your test consumers who are like, yeah, I'll buy it, new tech. Yeah. And they get it and the company's glad you purchased it. And the company has some features, but they're also still just kind of trying it out also. The companies, they're testing the product to see if you enjoy it and trying to get feedback so that they can give the features that maybe users are actually using as opposed to maybe what was thought up in the boardroom. And, we're kind of in that stage of voice SEO now where this isn't as new as, here's your Alexa, here's your Google Dot or whatever. It's, whatever the brand or company chooses to call their voice AIs. It's all about our house. We have Siri on the Apple phones, and sometimes it's almost a joke, a social joke where you're like, "Hey Siri," and maybe your watch or phone says, "Yes, what do you want?" And you're like, "Oh, that was a joke." Like I wasn't actually asking a question. But I know throughout my house, I slowly transitioned to kind of a smart home with some of my lights and my thermostats. And initially, I just was like, all right, let me get the app on my phone. I can control it. That's really cool. And then next thing I know, I'm getting some of the little voice notes to put all throughout my house. And our house is kind of shaped, it's very long and spread out, awkward. So if you're on one side of the house and you need somebody on the other side, it's almost a phone call or a walk across the house to speak to them. And having these little voice notes, we started kind of using this little like speaker projectors almost. I could be in my room and I'd say, hey, Google, tell living room, blah, blah, blah. And, or vice versa. You could be in the kitchen and be like, hey, Google, tell daughter's bedroom, dinner's ready. Doors closed and daughter's on the other side of the house. And it's, oh, door opens and flies down the stairs. And it's like, all right, that was cool. And that's just using it on kind of an internal practical level. But now with voice SEO, all those little things that you can broadcasting
There you go. Good example
yeah.
right there. Thanks for chiming in.
Yeah, thanks for jamming in. But there's times that my wife will, say, hey, blank, I don't want her to speak again, but hey, blank, what was that recipe for pot roast or whatever? And it's maybe something my wife's already looked up on her phone and maybe she spoke to it, said, hey, put on shopping list or something like that. And so that device is cataloging it. It's creating kind of a little profile of questions that's been asked. And especially because you can tell it yes or no, like, oh, no, that's not the right one. Or, oh, yes, that's the right one. So it's learning and building that little SEO package that, if utilized by advertisers, could be pushed more towards, a user. You might be streaming Spotify or something like that from it. And maybe you have the ad package, and instead of getting an ad about some random soap or something like that you've never heard of, maybe it serves you an ad that's a voice ad similar to a product that, a recipe that you've requested at some point or something like that. And it could build this great package and content, and you can tether it. Google has features on its settings where you can tell it to collect that data and utilize it. You can turn it off as well. They like to give you that option. But if you say yes, you're helping to feed Google's audience builder and understand how to serve somebody like you. And so it can kind of be that collaborative assistant as well, where it's not only helping you with your immediate issue or question, but also building on suggestions for maybe a future suggestion or issue that you may have. And so voice SEO is something that is becoming very prominent. And if it's not in your household through individual nodes and speakers, it's probably on your phone, if nothing else.
And that kind of is a natural segue over to AI and everything that's going on with that. And of course, in our industry and really almost every other kind of business, AI is one of the you know, top issues that people are dealing with. How are you using AI today, and where do you think it's headed?
I know with some of the platforms I utilize, they've been pushing out AI, Meta, or Facebook, Google, some of these other platforms. They already utilize what was essentially an AI in their algorithms, because those were always like learning and developing. They weren't AI in a traditional responsive sense because you couldn't so much directly communicate with it. It was more, it's like you'd build a package of, a question or so like with the targeting, you're telling it, look at these people, these ages, these locations. And when you gave it those parameters, that essentially non-responsive AI is going, okay, I'm going to take your package. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to test with this person and that person. And there, every time it gets a yes or no, it's, however long somebody interacted with an ad or whatever, it's slowly building that package to create a very siloed algorithm AI almost that's going to then say, all right, I've got that perfect audience for your ad and it's going to hit, it's going to serve perfect. It goes through that learning phase. And when you take something like that and then you give it more of a front facing presence, like something like ChatGPT or other softwares and programs, you're now giving that responsive AI that wants to essentially like please you in a way, instead of it just taking a package of questions and returning a result like it would be when you're utilizing a closed AI, like with the ad serving. With that open AI, you get such a customized experience where almost like talking with your peers in a team meeting where you're working through that strategy, you're kind of building a strategy with the AI, and not in a scary Terminator Skynet way. It's not trying to, it's not going to try and get the promotion ahead of you or something like that. But it's in a way that you have almost this unbiased team member on your team that has they have no foot in the game kind of thing. They're not going to win or lose by your ad or strategy or anything doing well. It's just there to help you. And just like with any information that as a human, as we put out, if you're in a classroom as a student, child, adult, there's a reason we kind of have an A through F scale, or 0% to 100% scale. Is you may have a semi-correct or correct answer, but was it 100% correct? Was it close to it? And so that's kind of the same way that information that we put out as humans to humans, and as humans, we are critiqued by other humans on maybe how relevant or valid or, influential that information is. That same type of concept has to go into how humans are interacting with their AI. And that's going to be where we see the big gains as the users of the AI, and also helping to shape the creators of the AI. Similar to the voice SEO, they put out this product, they put out this AI software, and it's developed from their big brains in the boardroom. And so now as we use it, that's going to help them reshape how these features respond to us, and what's more important, are people abusing the AI and putting in really bad information? That's the stuff that they're like, okay, do we need a whole division of people to siphon that stuff out so that when Andrew enters a simple question, it doesn't spit out something hateful or something wrong. But it is this great asset that you can have. That's in more of like the ChatGPT style AI, where you can utilize it as that unbiased team member. But there's so many features of AI now that are just what might have been a crazy thought in a sci-fi movie almost maybe even 10 years ago, or sometimes 50 plus years ago, and this is our reality. We have this newer feature, and like with any new feature and software, approach it carefully. It is something that will require a learning curve because, like anything, not everybody should use it. It's open to everybody, but not everybody should use it. It may not be a tool for everything. Some people may think it is, but I'm sure there's teachers out there that are banging their heads on the wall from students trying to submit their essay that maybe some AI wrote for them, and they put it in the plagiarism AI, and the plagiarism AI says, "Hey, guess what? I found this online." So I'm sure there's people that need to understand its boundaries and how, as humans, we need to utilize it as a tool and not as the definitive answer or the end all be all.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how all this shakes out. And I think we're going to be talking about it a lot, to the point where maybe at one point we're not talking about it at all, and there's something new behind it where you just don't know. We've seen a lot of evolution and revolution over the years in the marketing world, so I'm sure we're going to continue to see more and more going forward. Well, Andrew, I've really enjoyed visiting today with you about all the digital marketing that you're involved in. You have a great perspective on it, and we appreciate the insight you've brought to us today. We started out talking about you and your family following your grandparents back into the Midwest, back into rural America. When I say those words, rural America, what kind of thoughts and images come to your mind?
Well, first and foremost, the Midwest as a whole, it's a great region, and you have your little pockets of cities and your little pockets of dense populations. In Missouri here, we've got, St. Louis and Kansas City, Springfield, Columbia, a few other, cities and towns here and there that are fairly large. But then you think about the what most people would consider the rural parts of your community, and those are all the little towns in between, and the land that you see when you're driving down the highway, and the beauty that you see, especially in the Ozarks, the beauty you see as you're traveling around. And I think when I think of rural, I think of just all of it. You have the people in the cities that are doing the things they need to do. You have farmers and other agricultural individuals that are doing rural work or work in the rural areas. You have just rural beauty itself. And it's just, it's unmatched. While I love the city, being in Springfield, you got to leave it sometimes. You got to get out there to the beautiful rural Ozarks for sure.
It's pretty darn great.
It is.
So, as we wrap up today, Andrew, what else would you like to share with our Outdrive audience?
I think I'd like to share that, as I mentioned in the beginning, ads can be a little frustrating. I myself am frustrated by them at times too, but almost kind of like a symbiotic relationship. Like they're kind of a part of our life, and they kind of always have been. And when you interact with the media around you, the websites, the videos that you're watching on YouTube and other areas where you're consuming, maybe TikTok. And my daughter's obsessed with TikTok. Ads are going to be a part of that environment. Just like sometimes we don't like when it rains, sometimes we do. And that's a part of our environment. We need the rain, even when it makes it frustrating to do things on a day. We kind of need ads. We need businesses, we need industry, we need the world to work. And ads are a part of our environment. And how you receive those ads are also based on how you interact with those ads. And so it's something we can't really ignore. And as a user that and a consumer that gets very frustrated by ads, once I changed my perspective on it and started interacting with them a different way, I started getting the ads that meant something to me. And now they don't feel like ads anymore.
That's great insight. Andrew, thanks for being with us today.
I really appreciate you having me on, Cliff.
I've enjoyed it. Folks, thanks for listening to Outdrive. I hope you've enjoyed our visit today with Andrew Stallcup, digital marketing strategist at Callis. Come back again next week, and I'll take you down the roads of rural America, where it's heaven on earth.
Thanks for taking a ride with us on OutDrive. This episode is complete, so head on over to eCallis.com for more insight you can apply to help drive your business growth. And be sure to sign up for our free monthly e-letter, OutThink, for even more helpful content about marketing to rural America. Have a great day and keep on driving.